Hello everyone and welcome to The Big Story, where we discuss the hottest topics right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Haryanto, coming to you live from the Straits Times. Now we are streaming on Facebook and on YouTube, so be sure to comment, share and like our video. While you are at it, hit the bell button so that you will be notified whenever we go live. I will have my newsroom colleagues joining me to talk about the stories that got you talking today. Now, still reeling in the F1 fever that happened over the weekend. Now, Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel snapped the top spot in this year's Singapore Grand Prix, thus becoming the first driver to hold the record of 5 wins in the Marina Bay Street circuit. Now, he beat teammate Charles Leclerc and Red Bull's Max Verstappen, who came in third. Now, reigning world champion Lewis Hamilton finished fourth. This was his 53rd career victory, but his first since last year's Belgium GP. Despite the haze and air quality over the weekend, throngs of fans turned up undeterred for the race and concerts. Now, the 12th edition of the Singapore race drew a 3-day total of 268,000 fans, making it the second highest attendance after the inaugural race in 2008, which had 300,000 in attendance. So what does Vettel's win mean? This was Ferrari's third straight win. The last time they managed that was in 2008. Are we finally seeing a comeback for Ferrari? Now, to tell us more, I have acting news editor of the Sports Desk, Seheng, with me. Hello, Seheng.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Now, Seheng, for a start, if you could tell us, how did the race on Sunday compare to previous editions, in terms of the drama and the excitement that happened?
We all know that, in terms of our street circuit, since the first night race in 2008, our street circuit is configured such that there are few overtaking opportunities. So whenever there's drama, it usually happens at the start of the race or when there are pit stops, as we have seen over the years. So definitely the start this year was not as dramatic as the one in 2017 when Max Verstappen and Kimi Raikkonen took each other out. They crashed into each other at the start of the race. But what was most interesting this year was the duel between Ferrari teammates Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc. Now we all know that Leclerc sat on pole on Sunday and led for a good 1/3 of the race before his teammate Vettel was caught in for the pit stop earlier than his teammate. That resulted in Vettel coming out ahead of his teammate, and Vettel kept the position until the end of the race, which Leclerc wasn't too happy about. And I was watching the race at home, and several times during the race I could hear Leclerc saying on the team radio, whether there's a chance of him being returned to the rightful position.
Oh wow.
Although I was hopeful that Leclerc would be returned to number one, it was probably wishful thinking, because in terms of the team, they wouldn't want to do anything that would jeopardize the 1-2 finish, which was their first in since 2017.
And of course, apart from it being a Leclerc victory, it's also looking out for the team in general as well, right? For Ferrari, and then what you mentioned, the 1-2 win, the first and the second position. Now, let's shift the focus a bit on the winner, Vettel and Ferrari. Now, while they remain far behind Mercedes in the constructors' standings, so right now it's 394 points to 527, there is renewed optimism with the win. Are we seeing a resurgence of Ferrari, you reckon?
I suppose in the second half of the season, it might be more exciting than the first, where Mercedes were virtually winning every race. But in terms of the drivers and the constructors' championship, it might not mean that much. Now, our columnist, David Tremaine, has already filed a piece analysing this race, and it's already online. So you can go and read it at straitstimes.com or read it in print tomorrow. But basically, he was looking at the points that the drivers could possibly earn in the remainder of the season. Now, I wouldn't give too much away, but basically, Ferrari may be strong, but you cannot discount the likes of Hamilton or Bottas just sitting back and allowing Ferrari to get all the points. They will still be fighting for the points, and in terms of the drivers and the constructors' championship, Ferrari are definitely still in the driving seat, so to say.
Right. And that said, of course, well, we look at it on a bigger picture, right, with the Singapore Grand Prix. What do you reckon the future lies for the Singapore Grand Prix beyond its current deal, which expires in 2021? We're talking about factors to consider. Yeah.
So my colleague Sazali is also filing a piece that will come out tomorrow.
Yeah.
But basically, it's quite an interesting time for the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So the former F1 boss Bernie Ecclestone once called Singapore, the crown jewel of F1. And the current owners, Liberty Media, one of their representatives, also said earlier this week, or rather last week, that Singapore still has a place in their strategy, which is them wanting to host GPs in destination cities.
Yeah.
And definitely the race has had a big positive impact on Singapore since 2008, in particular the tourism numbers. So since 2008, we have drawn 1.4 billion in incremental tourism receipts.
Yeah.
And every year more than 200,000 people come to the GP.
Yeah.
And as you said, this year is the second highest.
Yeah, second highest.
Other than the inaugural race. So what other event in Singapore can draw more than 200,000 people in just 3 days? So that is one factor that all the parties involved will think about.
Yeah.
Recently, earlier this month, Senior Minister of State for Trade and Industry, Chee Hong Tat, he also said that we would be keen to continue if the price is right. Because the race really showcases our city landscape to the world. And the race is broadcast to some 840 million viewers.
Right. Okay. So clearly, saying there are a lot that needs to be considered with the future of GP, but it does look quite positive, right? With all the returns that it brings to Singapore, and of course, like you mentioned earlier on as well, there are pieces written by our columnists and even SARS as well with regard to the F1 fever. It's still ongoing, even though it has ended over the weekend. Really, if you want to read up on that and you want to know more about what happened over the weekend and really what is the future that lies ahead for Singapore Grand Prix, you can head over to our website at www.straitstimes.com. Once again, thank you so much, Seheng, for coming onto the show to tell us more about the F1 and Singapore Grand Prix in general.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, moving on to our second segment, an oil trader at Mitsubishi Corporation's Singapore unit, Petro-Diamond Singapore, has been fired and reported to the police after causing losses of around $440 million through unauthorized derivative transactions. Now, Mitsubishi said the trades were uncovered when the firm investigated the employee's transactions during his absence from work in the middle of last month. Now, he was found to have engaged repeatedly in unauthorized derivative trades since January and disguised them to look like hedge transactions. Now, according to news reports, a spokesman for Mitsubishi, which has a reputation as a careful trader, said that this was the first loss of its kind in its history. To tell us more, I have journalist Chu Yun Ting with me. Hi, Yun Ting.
Hey.
And of course, this is your first time here on Big Story.
Yes.
Nervous?
First time. I'm alright.
Alright, okay,
Yeah.
don't worry, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. As a start, maybe Yun Ting, if you could tell us, right, what rang the alarm bells? Because it has been ongoing since January.
Yes.
Right? So what rang the alarm bells and really, what prompted the investigation into this employee?
Yes. So actually from July, when oil prices started falling, so the firm was actually suffering some large losses in derivatives trading. And so when the employee was absent from work in mid-August, that's when the company started looking closer at its transactions. And that's when they uncovered that there were some discrepancies in the trades. So Mitsubishi has said that the employee actually manipulated the data in the risk management system, which made it look like the trades were associated with actual transactions, which was not the case. And so actually in the wake of this incident, one of the issues that industry insiders have talked about is how compliance slip up like this. How can it have taken place, right? Given that there are usually quite a lot of checks that are in place. So for now,
Yeah, it seems to be seen. And of course, you mentioned, one of the checks, of course, and this is something that we discuss as well. Like, I have friends who are in the banking industry.
Yes.
They do have compliance leave that they have to take, which is compulsory, 2 weeks, to make sure that such lapses do not happen, right? Now, according to Bloomberg, of course, a person familiar with the matter identified the trader as Wang Xingchen, or also known as Jack Wang. What has happened to him now? So we know that the case has been reported to police. Do we know of his whereabouts and where is he?
Right. So, Bloomberg source has identified the guy as Jack Wang.
Yeah.
Neither Mitsubishi, Petro-Diamond, or the police have confirmed the identity of this guy.
Yeah.
So at the moment, Mitsubishi still says that investigations are ongoing and there are no further details that are released because it's an ongoing matter. But what we do know that he was hired to do the crude oil transactions with China. Yeah, and so far attempts to contact this employee at his desk phone or his mobile phone have been unsuccessful. So he was fired last Wednesday and he was reported to the police the next day. So far we have not had any updates from the police on this.
On this, and like you mentioned,
we do not know where it is.
We do not, his whereabouts are still unknown. And of course Mitsubishi also has not
they have not released
further details with regard to the employee. Now this is of course not the first time such a case has happened.
Yes,
we've had, unfortunately, we've had cases that happened in previous years as well. How does this, case stack up to the previous ones that we've had?
Right. So, the losses by Mitsubishi in this incident are pretty massive, and it's also likely to be the first of its kind for the company. So it was about like 320 million US dollars, or about 440 million Sing dollars. There have been heavier losses in the past. So one of the most notable cases actually took place in 1995 and involved this man named Nick Leeson.
Okay.
Yes. So he was based in Singapore. And he falsified accounts and trading records at this British financial institution named Barings Bank. And so he racked up about 1.4 billion US dollars.
Wow.
Which eventually sunk the bank. So for this, he was sentenced to 6.5 years in jail. But he was released in 1999 on good behavior. But this Mitsubishi case is probably the largest since last year, when this Chinese state oil giant, Sinopec, they reported a loss of more than 650 million US dollars on crude oil hedging and suspended 2 of its top officials from its trading arm, Unipec.
Right. And of course, Nick at that time was only 28 years old when he committed that. I mean, sometimes I imagine at 28 years old, I mean, wow, like for him to be doing that, it's unthinkable, right? But again, thank you so much, Yun Ting, for sharing with us the story on this. Certainly, case is still ongoing, investigations are still ongoing. For more updates, and I'm pretty sure you will be following very closely as well on the updates. So, for more updates on this case, do visit our website at www.straitstimes.com. Once again, thank you, Yun Ting, for coming to the show. It was not that bad, right? Even though it was your first time?
It's alright.
Not too nerve-wracking, I suppose.
Okay.
It's been fun. Now, earlier on, we spoke to Se Heng, who shared with us a bit more about all the happenings at the F1 weekend that just passed by, and certainly, what really lies ahead for the Singapore Grand Prix. And then we also had Yun Ting to share with us more about the case of the Mitsubishi Singapore unit that fires oil trader after a $440 million loss. Now, that is all we have for you for our top stories of the day. For more news and videos, do log on to our website at www.straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Haryanto. Join us tomorrow, same time, for more stories on A Big Story.